Welcome back to my movie review series. Today's review will be the 2008 Disney and Pixar movie, and that is Wall-E. The movie premiered on June 27, 2008. The movie airs on Disney Channel, Disney XD, Freeform, FX, originally streamed on Disney Life, and streaming on Disney+, Hulu, Apple TV, and Amazon Prime Video. In the 29th century, rampant consumerism and environmental neglect have turned Earth into a garbage-strewn wasteland. Humanity is nowhere to be found and has been evacuated by the megacorporation by and large, Buena, on giant Starliner 7 centuries earlier. Of all the waste allocation load lifter, Earth-class robots left by BNL to clean up, only one named Wall-E remains operational. One day, Wall-E's routine of compressing trash and collecting interesting objects is broken by the arrival of an unmanned probe carrying an extraterrestrial vegetation evaluator robot named Eve, sent to scan the planet for human sustainable life. Wall-E is smitten by the sleek, otherworldly robot and the two begin to connect until Eve goes into standby when Wall-E shows her his most recent find, a living seedling. The probe then collects Eve and the plant, and with Wall-E clinging on, returns to its mothership, the Starliner Axiom. In the centuries since the Axiom left Earth, its passengers have degenerated into helpless corpulence due to laziness and microgravity, their every whim catered to by machinery. Even the captain, 1B. McCree, is used to sitting back while his robotic lieutenant and steering wheel auto flies the ship. McCree is taken aback by a positive probe response and learns that placing the plant in the ship's hollow detector will trigger a hyperjump back to Earth so humanity can begin recolonization. Upon inspecting Eve's storage compartment, however, the plant turns up missing, and Eve blames Wall-E for its disappearance. With the plant missing, Eve is deemed faulty and taken to diagnostics. Mistaking the process for torture, Wall-E shuts all of diagnostics down, causing him and Eve to be designated as rogues. Now it's up to them to bring the plant back to McCree and convince him and the inhabitants of the Axiom to return to Earth. The story is incredibly well written and paced, is highly heartwarming, suspenseful, romantic, and a little action-packed and comedic. Has some interesting world building as we explore how this 29th century world functions, and on top of that, has some incredibly handled and well-told messages regarding environmentalism with how Earth by this point has become a garbage-ridden wasteland, and that we can muster up the will to make things right, and especially the dangers of what happens when capitalism and commercialism go too far. Now I'm not in any way anti-capitalism or anti-commercialism as they are needed to make economies and businesses, big or small, thrive, but the film shows the dangers of what could happen if they go too far. It's also pretty neat that pretty much the entire first third on Earth has virtually no dialogue with the exception of the few words Wall-E and Eve say. The film is incredibly heartwarming and charming, and this leads to several heartfelt and tender moments and bits like Wall-E and Eve's romance as they are a highly adorable and believable couple, Wall-E traveling through space, Wall-E and Eve playing around in space, and the ending. There's also a good amount of suspense as there are some pretty intense and action-packed moments like Eve's arrival on Earth and her blasting away at a few things, Wall-E sneaking his way aboard the Axiom, him and Eve becoming fugitives, Wall-E accidentally shooting himself out in an escape pod and setting off the self-destruct sequence, and the final battle against Otto. While this movie may not be as comedic as the other Pixar films, there's still a decent bit of humor like the silly shenanigans Wall-E gets himself into, him goofing around with all the stuff he finds, him and Eve flirting. The animation is absolutely phenomenal and it really holds up for a movie that came out back in 2008. The characters and robots all have amazing designs and very fluid movements, the backdrops and settings are incredibly well crafted and detailed, and there's some amazing effects like the lighting, the lasers and explosions, and especially the scope as it gives the film a massive scale. The characters are all highly lovable, have great chemistry, and even some great character development. Wall-E is a very solid protagonist as he's very curious about Earth's past, becomes love-struck when he meets Eve, and through the bond they form, he's willing to put his life on the line for not only her, but for the rest of humanity so they can return home and begin anew. Eve is another very solid character as she's pretty tough regarding her purpose, and can be a bit trigger-happy, but she does show her tender side when she becomes more attracted to Wally. McCree is another pretty likable character as he may be pretty lazy at times. He does somewhat like his position as captain, but as he continues to learn about Earth and its history, the more he becomes fascinated with it, and decides it's time for him and the other Axiom inhabitants to return home, and will do anything to make it happen. Otto is a pretty intimidating and cunning villain as he wants to maintain the status quo at any cost, and will stop anyone who gets in his way, and his monotone voice do make him kinda creepy. The side characters are also highly enjoyable and do play an important plot in the story, like the compulsive cleaning robot Emo, and the oblivious yet adaptable John and Mary, who also make a neat couple. The voice acting is incredibly well done, and while not all of the performances contain complete sentences, they're still incredibly good, like Ben Bird as Wally, Elisa Knight as Eve, Jeff Garlin as McCree, John Ratzenberger as John, and Kathy Najimy as Mary. Thomas Newman delivers an amazing and beautiful score that manages to be uplifting, heartwarming, and adventurous. Verdict: 8.5 out of 10. This is right up there with the original Toy Story trilogy as one of Pixar's best films in their library, and easily one of the greatest animated films ever made. It's no wonder why it was selected for preservation, and how it became the first ever Disney Pixar film to get a home media release from the Criterion Collection.